Discover 30 spine-chilling off-the-grid horrors, sinister secrets exposed in haunted wilderness. Claire stood in the front yard of her new house, its peeling paint a testament to years of neglect. The air felt heavy, as if the property itself was burdened with secrets. Jenna and Lily played on the overgrown lawn, their laughter ringing out, but even that felt eerie, swallowed by the silence that hung like an impending storm. Claire's heart fluttered with both hope and dread. This was supposed to be a fresh start, a sanctuary away from the chaos that had defined their lives in the city. But a chill crawled down her spine, whispering that they had stepped into something far darker than she could have anticipated. As dusk settled, the atmosphere shifted. The light dimmed, replaced by shadows that coiled around the corners of the house. Odd scrapes echoed from the woods behind them, sounds that weren't just branches cracking, but something more sinister, a creature lurking just out of sight. Her eyes flickered to the woods, the trembling branches casting ominous shapes that made her think of all the horror stories she had ever heard. "Stay close, girls," she called, the unease creeping into her voice. Their reclusive neighbor, Mr. Griggs, stood at the edge of his property, his gaunt face barely visible through the tangled trees. He watched them with hungry eyes, and Claire felt an involuntary shiver race along her skin. What did he want? Why did he never leave his yard? She shook her head, brushing the thoughts aside, trying to convince herself they were safe. But as she reassured her daughters, the persistent thumps from the woods grew louder, as if the heart of the forest was beating wildly. One evening, while the girls explored, they stumbled upon a trapdoor hidden beneath overgrown weeds in their backyard. It yawned open like a gaping maw. "Don't go down there," she shouted, but curiosity pulled the girls close, eyes wide with wonder and terror. Claire hesitated, her heart thundering as the girls peered into the dark abyss. What secrets lay below? That night, the television buzzed with alarming reports. A boy was missing, last seen near Mr. Griggs' home. Claire's gut twisted. The neighbors had whispered of a dark past, legends of sacrifices and shadows long buried. Her mind raced as she recalled every warning she'd brushed aside. What if she had brought her daughters into the belly of the beast? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With her heart pounding, Claire decided to venture into the wooded darkness herself, fearing for her daughter's safety. The moonlight shimmered on the twisted branches above, illuminating a path that felt wrong, too familiar yet hauntingly disquieting. As she walked deeper, symbols appeared, strange carvings etched into the trees, remnants of rituals that spoke of betrayal, vengeance, and things better left undisturbed. A figure moved in the distance, lurking just beyond the trees. Claire's breath caught. What was it? Her phone felt heavy in her hand. Documenting this horror felt trivial against the palpable dread building in her chest. The shadows crept closer, inviting her into their depths, murmurs of the townsfolk echoing in her mind, warnings of darkness that could swallow her whole. But as something rustled nearby, a cold sweat broke over her skin. She wasn't alone anymore, and she feared what that meant for her and her unsuspecting daughters. The rustling grew more pronounced, a series of sharp pops that mimicked footsteps. Claire's heart raced, each beat drumming a frantic rhythm of fear. She squinted into the dense thicket, searching for something, anything that might explain the movement. The shadows twisted, and her mind played tricks, half-formed shapes darting just beyond reach. Her breathing quickened. "Girls!" The sound of her own voice shook her. She had to get back to them, back to safety. But as she turned to retrace her steps, fear tangling with resolve, the clicking sounds grew louder, like a predator sizing up its prey. Each crackle of twigs echoed in her ears, louder in the absence of any animal sounds. The woods were alive, but not in a way that felt comforting. Panic surged, and she bolted down the narrow path that snaked through the underbrush, branches whipping her arms and face as if to warn her to slow down. The air was damp, thick with the smell of decay, and vaguely, she could taste the fear on her lips. She finally broke free of the trees, stumbling onward into her backyard, breathless and wild-eyed. Jenna and Lily stood by the trapdoor, their innocent little faces illuminated by the faint glow of the setting sun, utterly unaware of the horror that lurked just beyond the edge of the woods. "Mommy! Look!" They chimed together, excitement bleeding through their innocent tone. "What are you doing?" Claire gasped, pushing through her fright. She rushed to them, her heart dropping at the sight of the door wide open. The darkness below beckoned like a monstrous void. Suddenly, the girl's delight changed to confusion, absent-mindedly reaching toward the trapdoor as if something magical lay below. Claire grasped both of their arms, pulling them away. "Stay back." The urgency in her voice cracked like thunder, demanding their attention. A heavy silence enveloped them. The evening mist crawled along the ground, wrapping around their feet, tugging at them as if trying to pull them into the dark. Claire turned her head toward the woods, half expecting something sinister to leap out, but nothing moved. Then, like a phantom, Mr. Griggs emerged from the shadows, his thin silhouette cutting through the dusk. His eyes shimmered like distant stars, watching from a veiled, malevolent distance. "You shouldn't let them near that door," he warned, his voice a chilling rasp that sent a fresh wave of fear cascading down Claire's spine. "What do you know about it?" she demanded, each word laced with desperate bravery. "Some doors are better left closed." His gaze flicked between the girls and the trapdoor, a shadow of longing crossing his face that sent bruised shivers through Claire. The girls giggled nervously, but their laughter crackled and died in the bitter air. She felt compelled to protect them, a mother's instinct flaring brightly in the face of an unknown terror. Shaking, she glanced once more at the darkness yawning beneath their yard. What kind of horror was she shielding them from? What if curiosity led them into the depths of its waiting jaws? "Mommy, we want to go down," Jenna said, her voice sweet yet laced with stubbornness. Claire knelt, grasping their small shoulders. "No. We're not going down. Not now, not ever." But the trapdoor invited them with a promise of secrets, and just beyond, the woods murmured, the weight of all that had been done there pressing in on her like a hand around her throat. A sharp cry rang out, piercing the stillness, the drone of laughter replaced by a shriek that sent bolts of terror through Claire. She spun around, eyes wide and frantic, searching for the source, but the woods stood silent again, except for a whisper just on the periphery of hearing. What had she unleashed? And as she stood there, grappling with the darkness around her, a feeling crept over her: they were not alone. With a heart full of dread, Claire knelt down and whispered to her daughters, "We need to go inside now." But as she turned her back to the trapdoor, a flicker of shadow danced in the corner of her eye, promising that the worst was yet to come. What had she truly allowed into their lives? And what other horrors awaited them as night closed in? Claire's heart skipped as a chill ran down her spine. What was that sound? A rustle, maybe a whisper? No, not a whisper, more like a series of low, guttural growls emanating from the woods. She tightened her grip on her daughters, looking back toward the trapdoor that felt more alive than the darkening woods around them. "Mommy? We want to go inside." Lily's innocent voice broke through the thick tension hanging in the air, but the urgency in Claire was louder. The moment stretched, fear and confusion swirling in her mind like storm clouds. "Not yet," she hissed, glancing at Mr. Griggs, who stood still and silent, eyes wide, anchoring a weight of dread she could not shake. His gaze was fixed on the trapdoor and the creeping darkness that clawed at the edges of their world. "Never go down there," he warned softly, but the tremor in his voice betrayed something deeper, a warning not only for her girls but for Claire herself. The night fell heavy, the sky tipped into a deep indigo painted with the first splotches of a hesitant moon. Shadows lengthened and twisted like sinister fingers reaching out to grasp them, urging them inside as if the very breath of the forest had turned hostile. Jenna tugged at Claire's sleeve. But there could be treasure. Treasure? Mr. Griggs burst out, his panic evident now. No treasure exists in that blackness. Only nightmares. His voice hung in the air, thick with warning. Claire could feel the dread settling like an iron weight on her shoulders. With trembling hands, she pulled the girls closer. Their giggles faded to silence as they turned their wide eyes toward the growing night. "Mommy, I hear it too." Lily trembled, her innocent gaze darting toward the trapdoor. The abrupt shift in her voice made Claire's stomach drop. Before Claire could respond, a snapping sound echoed from the depths of the woods, near the trapdoor. Something was pushing its way through the branches, breaking the quiet with a menacing intent. Her thoughts raced, adrenaline pumped through her body. She felt a primal urge to protect her children from whatever lurked beyond their fragile sanctuary. "Get back!" she shouted, the weight of her motherly fear crystallizing into a commanding roar that sent the girls scrambling to her side. And just as an icy wind swept through the yard, toying with the edges of their clothes, a shadow emerged, a tall, gaunt figure cloaked in darkness, its limbs impossibly long. It loomed just beyond the edge of the trees, its face hidden beneath the drooping brim of a ragged hat. "Mommy," Jenna whispered, clutching Claire's thigh, her voice quivering. "Stay close," Claire said, her own voice barely a whisper now. Her heart raced, every beat heavy with dread, yet a jarring part of her brain screamed to make a run for it. Just then, a low, sickening growl rolled from the shadowy figure, reverberating through the air like the toll of a death knell. Instinctively, Claire took a step back, her thoughts spiraling into a frantic mess. Was it a person? A beast? Both? "Claire!" Mr. Griggs warned, his voice barely above a whisper. Then, with one swift motion, the figure lunged forward, its intentions unclear but its speed alarming. "Run!" Claire shouted, adrenaline igniting her legs into a sprint. She grabbed each girl's hand, pulling them toward the house, the trapdoor now an open maw behind them, filled with hungry shadows and sinister promises. Footsteps thundered behind her, sharp and urgent. Claire threw a glance back just as the figure halted, its eerie stillness swallowing their frantic movements as dark eyes glimmered from the depths of its hat. Something primal kept her feet pounding forward, a mother's desperate urge to protect fueling her flight. They reached the porch, and just as she slammed the door shut, the deafening silence stood like an ominous warning. They were safe for now, but a new question haunted her. What had they stirred in the dark? And would it come for them next? Claire's breath came in sharp, gasping bursts as she pressed her back against the door. The girls clung to her sides, their eyes wide, glimmering with fear in the faint light filtering through the dusty window. "What was that?" Jenna whimpered, her small frame trembling against Claire's hip. "I don't know," Claire whispered, her own heart racing. The shadows felt alive, crawling along the walls like living things. Then it hit her. The weight of Mr. Griggs' warning echoed in her mind, "Never go down there." But where else could they go? She peered cautiously out of the nearest window, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever had pursued them. The yard lay shrouded in darkness, the trees looming like silent sentinels, but the figure had vanished, leaving only a suffocating silence in its wake. "Mommy, I want to go home." Lily's voice quaked, and Claire felt a bolt of pain shoot through her heart. "There's no home to go back to, baby," Claire murmured, chiding herself for not being able to soften the blow, for not being able to protect them from this nightmare. A thud shook the door, followed by a series of frenzied knocks that echoed with a forceful urgency, as if demanding entrance. "Who is it?" Claire hissed, the panic surging anew. "Open up. Help. It's behind me." The voice was familiar but strained, raw with fear. It was Mr. Griggs. Without thinking, Claire threw open the door, and the man stumbled inside, his face pale, wild, and glistening with sweat. "What happened?" Claire asked, eyes frantic. It was watching me." He gasped, collapsing against the wall, his breath heaving in and out. I thought I could lose it in the trees, but it followed. What followed? Lily's small voice pierced through the terror, but Claire shushed her instinctively, sensing that they were teetering on the edge of something vast and terrifying. Mr. Griggs looked up at her, his gaze filled with dread. Something old angry. I saw it up close. It's not just a man. Claire felt her stomach drop. What do you mean? The hat, it wasn't just a hat. The way it moved, it's like it knows you. It knows what you fear. A low growl rumbled from outside the door, cutting through their frantic voices, and Claire felt the temperature drop, her breath forming clouds as the air turned icy. Get back! She shouted, pulling the girls behind her. The door rattled violently, the sound of claws scraping against wood sending shivers up her spine. The walls felt as if they were closing in, shadows deepening with every second. They're here. Mr. Griggs panicked, darting glances at the windows. We need to hide. Where? Claire demanded, her mind racing. Just then, the ground beneath them seemed to tremble. A distant sound filled the air, a rhythmic thumping, almost like a heartbeat, and it boomed from beneath their feet, resonating through the floorboards. What's happening? Lily cried. Claire looked down at the trapdoor, its mere presence sending ripples of panic through her. The stories she'd heard as a child echoed in her mind, the warnings about the building's history, buried secrets in the soil. Stay here. Claire ordered, and in a haze of instinct, she marched toward the trapdoor. Mommy, don't. Jenna wailed, but Claire could barely hear her over the pounding that was growing louder, more insistent. As she reached for the handle, the noise morphed into a piercing wail that vibrated the walls, a chorus of voices that stirred something deep inside her, a warning, a call. And just as she grasped the handle, a shadow cast itself across the room, blocking out the meager light. A figure emerged, wrapping itself in darkness like a long-forgotten memory clawing its way back to the surface. Turn back. A voice boomed, a deep, resonant whisper that chilled her to the bone. Claire froze, and for a breathless instant, time stood still. What had she just awakened? And more importantly, was there any escape from the nightmare that loomed just beneath the surface? Hurry, get away from there. Mr. Griggs' voice cut through the thick air, panic spilling from his lips. The shadow loomed larger, swallowing the room in a deep, unnatural darkness that seemed to breathe. Claire stepped back instinctively, pulling the girls closer, their small frames rigid against her. Lily looked up, eyes brimming with tears, her tiny hands squeezing Claire's shirt. Mommy, she whimpered, not now, sweetie. Claire shot back, fear sharpening her tone. The figure shifted, and she felt its gaze pierce through the dimness, the weight of it pressing against her chest. She could almost hear its thoughts, coiling around her mind, tormenting her with scornful whispers. Run! Mr. Griggs bellowed, lunging toward the door. But the moment he moved, an unseen force slammed it shut with an echoing crash, latching it tight. Why won't it let us out? Jenna cried, her voice climbing higher with each word. Claire felt her heart hammer in her chest. Cold, clammy dread washed over her as she realized they were trapped. She glanced back at the ominous form. It was still, but the room felt alive, pulsing with a dark intention. Remember the stories? She murmured to herself, her mind racing. The ones about the old man who lost his mind in this house? About the forest? Was it true? It wasn't just that the structure had history. No, there was a deep-rooted evil residing in the very essence of the ground they stood on. It had been waiting for years, dormant, but now it stirred. What do we do? Mr. Griggs stammered, eyes darting. His earlier bravado had all but vanished, replaced by a raw, naked fear. We need to get out. There has to be another way. Claire's breath was quickening again. Her thoughts swung wildly. The basement? No, it was worse down there. A crackling laugh unfurled from the shadow, a sound like shattering glass. "You think you can escape?" it taunted, resonating in the walls. "You're all mine eventually." Desperation clawed at her throat. Claire darted toward the windows, pounding against the glass, but it was unyielding, as if it had fused with the frame, mocking her futile attempts. "Get down!" she yelled. With her heart pounding in her ears, Claire pushed the girls down behind the dust-covered couch, its frame creaking like an old man's bones. Panic swirled in her stomach. She wanted to scream, to fight, but there was nothing. The floor echoed no longer a heartbeat, but now a steady thrum, almost hypnotic. "It knows us," Claire whispered, her voice barely audible over the noise. "It knows our fears." The figure moved closer, drawn to her like a moth to a flame, and Claire felt bile rise in her throat. "It's not just a man," she realized. Mr. Griggs' warning now made sense, and dread coiled tighter within her chest. The shadows danced and flickered, pressing in from all directions. Claire reached for the girls, their trembling bodies like fragile leaves caught in a storm. She needed to think. Then she remembered the trapdoor, the improbable exit. "Over there." Claire pointed, but her voice broke under the weight of fear. As if sensing her intent, the figure surged forward, breathing an icy chill that enveloped her, filling her lungs with a stench of decay and something far worse. The girls shivered uncontrollably next to her. "Mommy!" Lily gasped, tears spilling down her cheeks as she clutched her sister tightly. A growl reverberated through the shadows, loud and threatening, and Claire's resolve solidified. "We have to go. Now." She grabbed the trapdoor handle, praying it would still be accessible. The moment she pulled it open, darkness spilled out like thunderclouds, and the wailing voices intensified, a cacophony of loss and despair that threatened to swallow her whole. "Hold on," she urged. They scrambled toward the hidden passageway just as the shadow lunged for them. "Wait!" Mr. Griggs shouted, but Claire didn't hesitate. Down they went, arms linked, into the suffocating blackness below. The moment they descended, the noise stopped, replaced by an uncanny silence. The air was stale, heavy with secrets, but the oppressive weight of the shadow above was gone. "Are we safe?" Jenna whispered, her voice quivering as they stood in the pitch black. "I don't know," Claire admitted, feeling the weight of unseen eyes watching them. But before she could catch her breath, a flickering light emerged from deeper within the darkness, illuminating the contours of the walls, revealing something carved into stone. Something ancient. "Mommy!" Lily murmured, her small voice trembling with fear and uncertainty. What lay ahead? More horrors, more truths echoing beneath the surface? "Let us go," Claire whispered, heart racing as she stepped forward, bracing for whatever they might find down there. But what awaited them in this hidden pit? Would they uncover the origins of the darkness or be consumed by it? They crept deeper into the cave, the flickering light casting wild shadows that danced like tormented spirits on the walls. Each step they took felt like a challenge, as if the ground itself tested their resolve, urging them to turn back. Yet Claire pushed forward, driven by a mix of maternal instinct and sheer desperation. "Stay close, girls," she whispered, clenching their hands tighter. The darkness wrapped around them like an old leather cloak, suffocating and heavy. The stench in the air grew thicker, a foul aroma that clawed at their throats and made Claire's stomach churn. It smelled of rot and despair, a promise of the horrors that lay ahead. Jenna stumbled, her small foot catching on a jagged rock, and Claire bent low to check on her. "Are you okay?" I don't like this place," Jenna whined, her voice trembling. Claire nodded, unable to mask the fear threading through her own words. "Neither do I, sweetheart. But we have to keep moving." As they pressed onward, the flickering light revealed the ancient carvings more clearly. They were indecipherable symbols, intermingled with grotesque figures that seemed to twist and writhe as if trapped in time. Claire's skin prickled. It was as if the shadows of those who had come before were watching her, begging to share their fate. Suddenly, a chilling breeze swept through the passage, wrapping around them with icy fingers. Claire felt it before she heard the low whisper like hushed conversations of lost souls echoing through the corridor. The sound made her hair stand on end. "Do you hear that?" she asked, her breath quickening. Lily's vibrant eyes widened in horror. "Mommy, the voices!" Claire hushed them, her heart racing. But the whispers grew louder, swirling around her mind, coiling like smoke. "They're here." A voice hissed. "Join us, join us." "Stop it!" Claire shouted suddenly, anger and fear bubbling to the surface. She forced herself to listen, tuning in to every distant murmur, trying to decipher words amongst the chaos. But they were incomprehensible, like a nightmarish lullaby intended to ensnare her. The flicker of light sputtered again, casting everything in an eerie gloom. Claire squeezed the girl's hands tighter and pushed onward, her resolve hardening even as her insides twisted with apprehension. In their path, the cavern widened into a larger chamber. The air chilled further, and Claire's breath fogged in front of her. A stone altar stood in the center, draped in threads of dusty cobwebs. Strange, dark stains marred its surface, throbbing with a life of their own, as though it hungered for someone. "What is that, Mommy?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Claire replied, her heart thudding heavily in her chest. Before she could make a decision, a scraping sound echoed from deeper within the chamber. Eyes wide and hearts racing, they turned toward the noise, fear curling in their chests. Something was coming. "It's here." Mr. Griggs' voice rang out behind them, breaking into their fragile moment. He stepped forward, the light illuminating his panic-stricken face. "This isn't just a cave, what do you mean?" Claire snapped, her strength wavered at the sight of his fear. "I've heard these legends. The altar sacrifices are tied to its power. It attracts." He paused, the terror evident on his face. "The darkness feeds on fear." A thunderous crash echoed through the cavern, stone grinding against stone. Claire's stomach twisted as an unseen force slammed against the far wall, sending debris cascading down. "Run!" she screamed, adrenaline flooding her system. She pushed the girls ahead, praying for an escape, but something darker lurked just out of sight. The whispers surged again, louder now, drowning out everything around them. "Join us!" The girls clung to Claire's side, breathless. Was this truly the end? As they approached a narrow exit on the far side, strong hands gripped Claire's shoulder, holding her tight. She turned to see a figure, the very shadow that had haunted them above. It was here. With a surge of fear, Claire lunged forward, pulling her daughters deeper into the cave. Could they truly escape? In the darkness, echoes of the past entangled with their present, but one question hung in the air: what would be required to free themselves from this horrid fate? Or would the darkness consume everything they cherished? Claire's heart pounded like a war drum in her chest as she sprinted down the tunnel, dragging her girls behind her. The whispers clawed at her sanity, becoming an overwhelming chorus, each voice seeping into her mind sticky and invasive. The darkness held their breaths, blocking out the world they knew. "Faster," she urged, her voice barely breaking above the cacophony. The cave twisted like a labyrinth, each turn impossibly similar to the last, and the oppressive weight of evil pressed against them. She could feel it lying in wait. The girls stumbled, their little legs struggling to keep pace. Jenna's breath hitched as she gasped, "Mommy, what's happening? I'm scared." "Hold on tight." Claire snapped through gritted teeth, pulling them closer as they navigated more jagged rocks. The faint light from the lantern flickered weakly, casting grotesque shadows that morphed into sinister shapes before her eyes. Suddenly, a heavy thud reverberated through the ground. Panic seized her throat. Something was moving, stalking behind them through the darkness. They had to get away. "We're almost there," Claire lied, urgency fueling her determination. Up ahead, she could see a flicker of light. Hope ignited in her chest. But as they approached, the light distorted and twisted, revealing the altar again, tainted with shadows. A dark figure loomed over it, obscured in the soft glow. "I told you to join us," the voice slithered through the air, sinuous and cruel. The girls shrieked, clinging to Claire. "Mommy!" Lily cried, her wide eyes filled with terror. "Run!" Claire cried again, not looking back. She urged them to the left down a narrow passageway that veered away from the altar. The sound of footsteps echoed behind them, the creature with its whispering voice seemed closer. Jenna stumbled again, falling to the stone floor. "I can't," she sobbed, her tiny body shaking. Claire dropped beside her, heart racing as she scanned their surroundings. Dimly lit stones surrounded them, slick with moisture. The darkness pressed in, suffocating. "Get up. We need to go." Claire's voice cracked as she yanked Jenna to her feet. They pushed onward, tunnel after tunnel, hoping it would lead to the exit. Each corner felt like a test, the air thick with dread. Just when they thought they could breathe, the whispers escalated, rising like a tide of despair. Something shifted behind them, the sound of scraping claws clawing against the stone. It wasn't too far now, Claire could feel it close, hungry. She shoved the girls ahead, urging them onward. "Keep moving. Don't look back." But a chill soon wrapped around them, pinning Claire's instincts against her skin. The light ahead dimmed, flickering out entirely as they drew closer. The ground trembled beneath them, and the voice rose again, shrill and beckoning. "Stay with us, no." Claire screamed, planting her feet. The darkness swirled, insistent, brushing against her arms as though trying to pull her into its depths. She felt the weight of unseen eyes upon her, the figures of the past reaching through the shadows. "Mommy, please!" Lily cried, her voice thin with fear. With one last desperate effort, Claire saw a glimmering crack of light at the far end of the tunnel. "There, girls!" she shouted, hope surging within her. "That's our way out." But as they charged toward it, a roar erupted from the darkness, blasting cold air that sent shivers racing down her spine. Claire's breath hitched as an enormous shadow surged forth, blocking their path. Its glowing crimson eyes fixed firmly on her, scornful, hungry. "You cannot escape." The creature bellowed, its voice rattling the very stone around them. Heart racing, Claire turned to her daughters, their small faces pale with fear. She had to protect them, but how? The light shone like a beacon, but the darkness clung to her, a malevolent force refusing to let them go. With a surge of determination, she tightened her grip on their hands. "Ready?" she whispered, her heart racing. "We take our chance now." As she lunged for the crack of light, a sharp pain stabbed through her leg, something cold. Slicing, gripping her flesh. Something grinned from the shadows, knowing exactly where they were headed. Could they truly escape, or was this the threshold of their worst nightmare? The pain in Claire's leg shot through her like ice water, paralyzing her momentarily. She staggered, eyes wide with primal fear. A thin, dark tendril wrapped around her ankle, pulling her back with a venomous grip. "Mommy, help!" Jenna screamed as Claire fell to the ground, struggling against the force that latched onto her. "Stay together. Don't look back!" Claire shouted, trying desperately to claw her way forward, her heart hammering as the creature rumbled with sinister delight. But the girls were torn between her and the encroaching darkness. Panic surged in Claire's chest as she felt the weight of hopelessness, the shadows twisting around her, beckoning with whispers of despair, taunting her from every angle. The ground shook violently, muddled with the seeping cold of an unfathomable evil. "Lily! Jenna! Run!" Claire choked out, her voice strangled. She was losing her grip, she felt the terrifying tug of the abyss. Her daughters hesitated, glancing back, but their instincts kicked in. With a frantic cry, they turned and bolted, their small legs pounding against the stone floor. The creature's laughter echoed around them, a malevolent symphony of malice that sent chills skittering up Claire's spine. "They will join us soon," it hissed, reminding her of the truth she feared most. Desperation clawed at her, and without thinking, she grasped the cold tendril. The darkness wrapped tighter, as if sensing her resolve. With a guttural scream, Claire yanked her leg free, adrenaline surging through her veins. The pain was blinding, but survival drove her forward. "I am not done," she roared, abandoning fear. She could see the faint glow where her girls had escaped, and it seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. As she lunged toward it, shadows slithered around her, making her slow, pulling her back as they clawed desperately at her mind. "Join us, stay with us." Their voices blended into a sick lullaby, laced with promises of peace and comfort that sent her thoughts spiraling. Claire shook her head violently. "No. I want." In that moment of clarity, she realized something. A flicker of light meant recovery and retention if she could reach it. The cracks in the oppressive darkness seemed to stretch as she propelled herself forward again, finally breaking the surface. "Mommy." Jenna's voice pierced through the shadows, clear as day, chanting her name. Tunnel vision tugged at Claire, pulling her towards her daughters. She could see them now, huddled by the light, waiting for her brave return. A deafening roar erupted behind her, vibrating through the tunnel, making the very stones tremble. She dared not turn back. "Keep going," Claire urged, even as cold fingers grazed against her back, icy and desperate. But she was almost there. Her breath came in ragged gasps, fire burning in her thighs. Just as she leapt into the light, a sharp talon dug deep into her shoulder, forcing her to stumble. "No!" she cried out, crashing into the light in a whirlwind of shadows, the girls screaming beside her. The light pulled her closer, and she could swear she felt an unseen hand cradle her as the darkness recoiled. The lighting suddenly burst into brilliance, everything shifted, warped. She staggered, trying to regain her footing. But as she turned, the creatures retreated, clawing the edges of the light, their vicious eyes flickering with rage. And there, swirling within the remnants of the shadows, was something even more sinister, a vision of her own reflection, twisted and grinning, surface breaking with darkness. In the end, it whispered, its voice echoing hauntingly, "You can never truly escape." Claire's scream melded with her daughter's cries, their eyes darting, searching for safety. They stumbled backward together, unsure of the way. They were alive but trapped in this horrifying in-between, a world teetering on the edge of darkness. As Claire clasped their hands tightly, fear and determination fought within her. Did they escape the cave? Or did they merely step from one horror to face another? "Mommy, what do we do now?" Jenna whimpered, her fear evident. The shadows lurked closer, and Claire swung her head toward the horizon ahead. "We fight," she declared, heart pounding with renewed strength. "We find a way." But as they moved deeper into the light, the oppressive murmur returned, brushing against her thoughts like a forgotten memory. Somewhere behind them, an ominous growl reverberated in the distance, echoing promises of terror still to come. And in the distance, a haunting voice echoed through time and space, "Come back, you belong to us." What would it take to break free completely, and could they ever leave the horrors behind? The light cocooned them, a fragile bubble against the encroaching darkness. But Claire's heart raced, dread roiling in her stomach as she pushed forward, instinct screaming at her to keep moving. Jenna's grip was cold, trembling. She could feel her daughter's fear like a living thing. "We need to find shelter, somewhere safe," Claire murmured, more to convince herself than anything else. Ahead, the ground sloped upwards, a narrow path winding through a maze of gnarled trees that sprawled like dark fingers clutching at the sky. The air was thick, suffocating, and the distant growl shifted closer, reverberating through the earth beneath her feet. It had followed them. "Mommy, I hear it," Lily whimpered, eyes wide and glistening in the light. "What is that noise?" Claire brushed the thickening shadows from her mind, forcing herself to focus. It's nothing. Just keep moving. Stay close to me. They climbed higher, but every step felt heavy. The light flickered ominously, as if feeding off their fear, illuminating cracks in the earth that seemed to wail in agony. Each echoing growl sent shivers down their spines, blending with the whispers of the darkness. "Join us!" The chant filled the air, wrapping around Claire, pulling her thoughts into a vortex of despair. "Mommy!" Jenna gasped, her voice ringing with panic as the ground beneath them trembled violently. Claire whipped around just in time to see shadowy figures flickering at the edges of their light, seething with hungry anticipation, eyes gleaming with malevolence. "No!" Claire shouted, her fierce grip on her daughters tightening as she swung in front of them protectively. "You can't have them." She stepped forward, her heart pounding in a furious rhythm. With every ounce of strength, she challenged the darkness. The figures drew close, tasting her defiance. But another growl erupted, more furious, shaking the trees. "Her will is weak," it hissed, weaving through the gusts of wind. "You can't escape, you are ours." Claire felt something slip within her, a chink in her armor, and doubt crept in like frigid water washing over her. "What if it's right?" she thought, her resolve wavering for an instant. But then she looked at her girls, their terrified faces pleading with her to be strong. "No!" she barked, pushing the words through trembling lips. "We are free. We are together. We won't fall into your trap." As if fueled by her defiance, the light grew brighter for a fleeting second, driving the shadows back. But it was as if they were merely recoiling, regrouping, waiting for another opportunity to pounce. The growl faded, then exploded into a cacophony of cackles, a sinister chorus erupting from within the darkened woods. "Run!" Claire shouted, propelling them forward. They stumbled, feet pounding against the twisted roots, narrow gaps forcing them to squeeze through. A branch snapped loudly behind them, and she forced herself not to look back. Fear-maddened adrenaline surged, pushing her faster, but it wasn't just the shadows that chased them. A dark presence loomed above, massive and looming, its breath hot and rancid against her back. "Feel your despair," Claire whispered, wrapping around her like a snake tightening its grip. "You shall never know peace again. Your fear is my nourishment." The trees began to warp as they ran, their shapes shifting, contorting into faces frozen in agony, pleading for release. The sight made Claire's blood run cold. This place was alive, feeding off their terror, and the further they fled, the more ensnared they became. Suddenly, a clearing unfolded before them, illuminated not by the light they had achieved but by a sickly glow coming from a hollow within the ground. No place to hide. No refuge. The luminous pole beckoned, promising warmth, calling to their deepest fears and desires. "Mommy?" Lily whimpered, clutching Claire's arm. "What is that?" Terror clawed at Claire's throat, choking her on the decision looming before them. We have to check it out." What lay at the center was an uncertain promise. Hope or doom? Each step felt like a betrayal, edging ever closer to the truth about the shadows. But as the girls pushed toward the edge of the clearing, a bone-chilling howl shattered the air, a warning that they were running out of time. Behind them, darkness surged and pulsed like a living thing, hungry to envelop them again. What lay ahead in this hollow? Would they find a way out, or seal their fates in unfathomable darkness? The glow intensified, beckoning Claire and her daughters closer, heartbeats pounding like war drums in their chests as they navigated toward the source. The light shimmered ominously in the hollow, illuminating grotesque shapes twisted into the earth, sacrifices from a long-lost time. Claire's stomach churned as familiar whispers wrapped around her like vines, pulling her closer to dread. "We shouldn't go any further, Mommy," Jenna whimpered, her small fingers trembling in Claire's grasp. Lily clung to Claire's other side, terror etched in her wide eyes. "No, listen." Claire forced herself to breathe deeply, summoning courage. "We need to understand what this is. Maybe it can help us." A surge of defiance swelled within her. How could they cower? They had faced shadows beyond belief. This was their moment to take hold of their fate. As they approached the glowing hollow, it bubbled with a pulsing life of its own, and Claire could feel its pull, drawing at her fears, and for a heartbeat, it felt like home. She stumbled, reaching for the edges of the hollow where a soft hum ignited a warmth deep inside her. No, she shook her head fiercely. We're not giving in. But as she pressed forward, the light began to flicker violently. The shadows coiled tighter around them, creeping closer, eager to consume this faint flame of hope. "Mommy, please!" Lily shrieked, breaking Claire's concentration. In that moment of panic, Claire felt a crushing weight of despair. Every shadowy figure she had faced echoed in her mind, telling her she was doomed. It was a potent attack, designed to prevent her from seeing reason. Yet, with a renewed surge of resolve, she seized the girl's hands tightly. Together, she breathed, eyes fierce. "On 3, we turn and run. We may not know where we're going, but we're going together." She counted down, adrenaline sparking through her veins. 1, 2. Just as the last whisper of her countdown left her lips, a baleful roar erupted from the depths of the darkness. The oppressive presence pushed against them, smothering their resolve. "You are chosen." It bellowed, rage vibrating through the air, making Claire stumble. Then, with a primal scream, she shouted, 3. They turned and bolted, tearing away from the flickering glow and into the awaiting shadows. Feet flying against the ground, Claire could feel the darkness clawing behind them, menacing and vile. It howled with indignation, shadows distorting and twisting into grotesque faces filled with fury. "We can't stop!" Claire yelled, pulling the girls behind her as they barreled through the brambles that threatened to entrap them. "We are stronger than this." But the forest, alive and breathing, fought against their escape. Entwined roots snared their ankles, branches reached for their hair. Every forward motion felt like wading through thick mud, but Claire pushed through, her unwavering resolve tethering her to hope. "Run. Just run." Jenna and Lily mirrored their mother's terror, pounding a rhythm against the earth that echoed through the darkened woods. Each thrust of their legs felt like a testament to their will, fear becoming a raw energy that propelled them steadfast. With every ounce of strength, she squeezed their hands. "Hold on. Don't look back." Behind them, the growls morphed into a cacophony, pleading voices rising like a sick symphony, taunting her and promising a return to the darkness. But Claire refused to succumb. "We are not your prisoners, we will break free." Suddenly, a familiar clearing emerged in front of them, bright moonlight spilling like liquid silver. "There. The way." She gasped. It was the boundary of the woods, where familiar light shone brightly, bursting from the horizon. As they charged toward it, the shadows heaved like a tide, desperately reaching for them, claws scratching at Claire's conscience. "You're not free. Come back to us." They shrieked, their terrible shrills rising like an unholy chant. With a fierce burst of resolve, Claire pushed forward, surging breathlessly into the light, her body a shield against the perils behind. And as they crossed the threshold, she felt the world shift in an instant. The shadows shrieked, the ground trembled but stayed behind as they broke from the dark entrapment. Stumbling onto the grass, Claire collapsed with her daughters, gasping for breath. They were out, free from the suffocating grip of the woods. The night felt different, clearer, as if the weight of the shadows had been lifted at last. Tears streamed down her face as she held them close, shaking with cathartic relief. "We're safe," she murmured, each word a prayer. But then silence grew heavy, the world felt unreal. The sound of the darkness receded, the words of the trapdoor still echoed in Claire's mind, reminders of the ties that bound them. "What if it's not over?" she whispered, a sense of unease seeping back into her bones. Jenna held tight to her mother. "Are we ever going to be free, Mommy?" Claire swallowed thickly. "We have to keep fighting," she replied, determination lighting a stubborn spark within her. And as the cool breeze rustled through the trees, Claire knew they could never fully escape the horrors of what they had faced, but they would stand united to confront whatever darkness awaited. And together, they prepared to walk back into the light, champions against the fear that once threatened to engulf them. They were alive, together, and that was their victory. Now, it was time to face the morning. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the intense and exclusive stories coming next. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters more than you know. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this dark journey. And if you care about your friends, instantly share this video with at least 5 pals who need to witness this gripping conclusion. Don't wait even one more second.